I'm joined today by Mohd Peter Davis, who's a recently retired agricultural scientist at the Institute for the Advanced Technology at the University Putra, Malaysia in Kuala Lumpur. And he's also a collaborator of the LaRouche movement internationally. Peter, well, welcome to Australia Unshackled.
Yes, thank you.
And you're also not a stranger to Australia. You worked here for 20 years.
Yeah,
so welcome back.
Yeah, so it's very nice to be back again in Australia. I come back occasionally because I've got a brother in Brisbane, Bribie Island, so it's always a good reason. But it was this time, it was very interesting to come back because after 20 years, because when I left Australia to live in Malaysia, because I have a Malaysian wife, so there was no LaRouche movement at all.
Yeah.
So it was very interesting coming back and meeting up with you again, and realising the great developments that have taken place in Australia. And I left Australia actually a bit demoralised, because when I first came to Australia in 1969, it was the lucky country.
Yeah, we had a lot of science and technology going on.
Yeah, it was fantastic. So I'd done an overland trip from England to Australia, 4-month trip with an older brother who was used to being on the road, so I was well guarded with all the technique. It was a very rough trip, and we had very little money. So I saw Asia really from the gutter. Most people see Asia in luxury hotels and all the rest, but we left England £900 between us for a 4-month trip. When we landed in Darwin, my brother had £5.
Oh wow!
So he couldn't go any further. He said, "I've got to work." So as soon as we got to Australia, we were all right.
Yeah.
He was a fitter and turner, so he could turn his hand anywhere they got a lathe. He could earn money.
Well, back then we actually had industry.
Sure.
Today we don't.
He just said he didn't have a clue as to what he was going to do in Darwin.
Yeah.
And he was a bit worried, and we went to the pub on the day we arrived, and he was just talking to the fellas there. They'd give you a job tomorrow, just turn up at this factory. I'm working. They're crying out for. He said, "You've got skills. You know how to work a lathe. We want you." Yeah.
Well, back then that's how it used to work. Like people needed work.
Sure.
They needed the skilled labour. Today you have to have the experience.
Yes.
And it's just this bureaucratic nonsense.
Yeah. So Australia then was just crying out for young, skilled people. When I landed in Australia, I'd written off before I left because I've got a degree in biochemistry then, and I'd done it part-time while I was working. Left school at 17. I went to work for a company called Pfizer, big pharmaceutical company that developed penicillin and then next generation of antibiotics, terramycin. And so I got my degree while I was working, so I had 9 years experience of working. So before I left, I wrote off to all the universities, all the likely companies that employ. And when I landed, I had 10 job offers. I had two PhD offers, one in Melbourne, one in West Australia. Yeah. And but I decided I'd got a job 2 days before I left England at Queensland University, and a very good job and very good pay. And so I wasn't too keen on becoming a poor student, because I'd never been a student. I was broke. I needed to earn some money. I've got to buy cars and things like this. Yeah. So it was fantastic then. I'll give you an example. I was at Queensland University for 18 months. I was employed as a senior technician, really top pay. And so when I first went there, I bought an old banger car. It packed up, the engine blew up inside 2 months. But then in that 2 months, I'd saved up enough money to put a deposit on a new car, a new Mini. It's 1969. And was able to pay it off in 18 months, the car. Also, I was very keen on sailing, so I bought a small sailing dinghy, towed it behind, and all the rest. So that's all in 18 months.
Yeah, well, we can't do that today. You need to save years. But soon after that, didn't you get into the CIRO?
Yes.
How did that happen?
So, during my 18 months in Queensland University, I developed a theory about viruses. And I'd worked in the with Pfizer on fundamental research on viruses, and I came to the conclusion. So I grew up really doing that, and was doing was doing top-level research. As a 19-year-old, we're doing pioneer research in understanding really the nature of viruses, because Pfizer they've got the drugs, they've got the penicillin, the terramycins to attack bacteria and control that, and it was a huge world market. And they said the next barrier was, how do we control viruses? Because you can't treat viruses with antibiotics even to this day. You can't do it. You can only do that with vaccines.
Right.
But they were a drug company, a pharmaceutical company.
Yeah.
It used to be called drug companies, but drugs got a bad name.
Yeah.
So they're now pharmaceutical companies.
Right.
And so they've developed we're developing that. So I've come up with this theory that viruses really weren't, the primary function of viruses wasn't as agents of disease. It's that they had a more fundamental role in nature, and that was to spread genes between one species to another.
Right.
Now, the world has got, the Earth has got about at least 50 million species. And as a biochemist, I couldn't understand how, when you look at all the different 50 million species, all of them are fundamentally the same at the biochemical level. When you get below the appearance of things, you know, they're different animals and all the rest, you think they're different. But when you get down to the cellular level, and then cellular level, there's differences, but when you get inside the cell, everything is the same.
Yeah. And so what you were worried about, actually...
How did it come up? Sorry.
Yeah, you were worried about the tendency for viruses to spread in the human species that could potentially wipe out the human population.
Yeah, that came much later.
Oh, yeah.
When I was with the CSIRO. So I went to the CSIRO really because that gave me the chance. They were advertising for sort of junior scientists to come and work with some very senior scientists that were doing fundamental research on viruses. Now that's exactly what I want to do. I said, I can go here and develop my theory. Because to develop any theory, you must be in the right environment. You must, and CSIRO then was doing fundamental research, and it was really good.
So your theory actually challenged the prevailing theory of viruses,
sure.
So they didn't really agree.
Oh, sure, everybody thought I was a lunatic. Yeah, hell yes, that's always it. Oh, no, great disagreements and all that. But also curiosity. So the head of the CSIRO there, Jimmy Rendell his name was, and he was a very good scientist. He was a Drosophila geneticist, and from the old school, very, very serious one. And he disagreed with me, but he disagreed with me scientifically. He said, I don't see any need for your theory. But he kept coming back and coming back. And but I didn't last all that long in animal genetics, because at that stage CSIRO went away from fundamental research and it went to what I call quick research. Anything that makes money fast. If it's not going to make money within 2 years, not worth doing.
Well, that's all science is today. You know, if you're not there to get the money, if you're not doing something that's going to give us money, then...
So it's just against all of the scientific traditions. And look, I'd worked for industry. And industry is about making money. Even they saw the need for, right, we've got to do long-term research in that, you know. And what we're doing now, we might not be able to get it for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, but we still have to do it. If we don't do it, they have a clear understanding. Pfizer did because it came from the American system under Roosevelt. This was it. So I was trained really. Pfizer came to England, it came to Europe, and it was after the war. It wasn't about to smash and jail all the Germans. It was there to remoralise them. And it was part of the Roosevelt system. I learnt this afterwards. It was there to, what we do, we fought the war to win the peace. And now we want to develop Europe, so it doesn't want to go to war again. And so I was brought up under that system. And they thought globally. Diseases are global, they're not countrywide or national or anything like this. And so I had that training. So when CSIRO started to close down, I was in the forefront of fighting for this. And you know, we had not a union association, and but it formed the same function as a union, and we all kicked up a great fuss. And throughout Australia, the whole of CSIRO was united. and saying, no, you cannot do this. You cannot cut down on fundamental research.
And I mean, very quickly after that, you got shifted into something else. They got you into sheep.
Oh yes. Well, they closed down virus research. And then they transferred me to sheep research.
Oh.
Now, I started off with the smallest organism in nature, sort of got function of life, rather than just a chemical, something sort of living inside cell. So I went from the smallest organism to a sheep. And of course, I knew nothing about sheep.
Yeah.
And nothing really about agriculture. I was trained as a biochemist, as a lab man. You're working with test tubes and this. So that was a sort of baptism of fire, you know, moving that. But I moved in with some very good. Australia its best thing is agriculture. That's what it does best. And I went to work with two great Australian scientists called Bob Weston and Jim Hogan. And they had developed. They said that they had developed all of the understanding of how the rumen of the sheep and cows and cattle worked, all the microbial activity that was going on in there.
Which is where the protein comes from for our food.
Yes, yes. So the big puzzle is, how can a cow or a sheep eat grass? Humans can't, most animals can't, and then they can turn this into food that we eat. Very, very high quality food. The highest quality food is red meat, you know, sheep, cattle, beef, and then milk to get out of it. So they worked out, we knew in general, but they worked out in detail, quantitatively. So I went to work with them, and working from virus, it was a very good experience. You know, it was very good. So I learned a great deal about it. But
and I mean, today, I mean, what you've discovered in the last few years and what you've developed is a system of agricultural technology called the Deep Tropical Project, which, I mean, you're taking what you're just talking about, you're taking that and revolutionising agriculture, because this is what we have to do. We have to develop agriculture in the tropics. Could you explain this Deep Tropical system? Because this is really the future of agriculture.
Yeah. So going on from the CSIRO, what the scientists, the agricultural scientists there were concerned about was they realised that the sheep in Australia are starving for about 10 months of the year, and this was all right. It's all right for wool production, because sheep, even when they're starving, you know, you get spring grass, you get a bit of rain, you get the grass coming up, and they wallop the grass and put on weight quickly. Now that has to last them for until the next rain. It might be 10 months away. So they're starving then. But the great secret of the sheep is that it can continue growing wool even whilst it's starving. And this is why it was such a great colonial crop. Because the British were never interested about feeding people. They were only interested in establishing really their world industries. They had cotton from the slave trade in America. They had tea and spices from India, and then Malaysia started to mass produce wool, and they were never interested in the meat. You couldn't transport meat around, because at those times they only had sailing ships, no refrigeration, and so wool is non-biodegradable. You can produce wool. It can get wet. It can get hot. It can be 6 months, half a year getting to Australia. So it was the perfect product for the British Empire.
Yeah, well, because in the late 1860s, the British were threatened by Abraham Lincoln's development with the Transcontinental Railroad and the development of that into Germany and France and Japan, which threatened the empire of the British. And so they then had to start World War One. So they needed that wool for their troops.
Oh yes, the wool was to fight their European wars. Now Europe's very cold. Yeah. You know, and to fight a war, you've got to have trench coats. Now there's an awful lot. There must be a sheep in every trench coat. You know, that's the amount of wool you need. Yeah. And then all the long johns, all the woolen garments. They could never fight that at war. So it was just as important as ammunition for them to fight. And the British have always been good at fighting wars. So let's set two friends together as enemies and get it. So, but to be able to carry on that, they had to produce, you know, woolen clothing.
Mm-hmm.
So the wool was for war.
Yeah.
Basically, that was its function. Yeah.
Well, let's look at this deep tropical system, because today, I mean, Australia is a dry continent.
Mm.
People say, oh, you know, we can't develop agriculture, we can't, you know, feed the population.
Mm.
And we have this big debate right now in Australia about overpopulation, which is a big fraud, because we only have 2 people per square kilometre. I mean, if you put Tasmania's population density into Australia, we'd have 57 million people.
Mm.
I mean, I spoke to a guy the other day who said he could have 50 million people in the country and you wouldn't even know they're here.
Mm.
So
I'm smiling. I'm smiling at this one because I had a lot of experience with it.
Yeah.
So going back to when I came into Australia in Darwin, I had to hitchhike to Brisbane because I couldn't do it anyway. Couldn't afford to do it any other way.
Mm.
So that took 7 days. And apart from the service stations that you had to stop off and get petrol and spend the night, I didn't see a person, not one person, and hardly one tree.
Yeah.
And I thought I'd landed on the moon. They said it was that bad, you know.
Yeah.
And you think, well, that was the hardest bit of the trip. And then when I went to Sydney, everybody was talking about zero population growth, that we're overpopulated. And I said, you're crazy.
Yeah.
You're not crazy.
Yeah.
I've just travelled halfway across your continent and there's nothing.
Yeah.
And you're trying to tell me it's overpopulated. and I say I agree with, and by that time I was starting to read a bit about the history of Australia, I agree with populate or perish.
Yeah.
That's, you know, get more people in. Isn't this what you've been doing? You know, you've been attracting all the English migrants to come over, the young ones and all the rest, and lucky country. You need people.
Yeah.
And to this day, and then I come back now, and they're still talking about that.
Yeah.
And there's one lunatic who wants to go to 6 million population.
Yeah, it's
now
Tim
this fellow is just completely wacko.
Yeah, he is.
You know, and he should just be locked up, I think.
Yeah.
You know,
Put him in a jail
for his own
with it.
safety. I mean, if he's talking about 6 million, that means he's got to wipe out an awful
For the
lot.
safety of our children and future generations and the elderly today, let's put these guys in a mental institution.
That's right. Treat them nicely and kindly.
Yeah.
But say, well, you know, you just relax and watch TV.
Yeah.
Let us develop the country.
We'll show you how an economy actually works. We'll show you what it is to be human. Yeah. Well, this is the thing about deep tropical, is that you've developed the technology to mass produce cattle. I mean, Australia has only 0.7 cattle or sheep per hectare per year. New Zealand has 8.
Yes.
With what you're doing in Malaysia, you're saying you can have 82 in Malaysia?
Yes. So moving from the CSRO, so the CSRO was the main industry for Australia in the early days was sheep, but sheep for wool, not for meat.
Mm-hmm.
New Zealand really took over the role of the international meat production because it's got far better rainfall. So Australia, even in the south, was not very suitable for growing meat for animals, to a certain extent. That could all be solved with, you need water. Water is the great, why Australia can only get 0.7 sheep per hectare, whereas New Zealand can get 8 sheep per hectare, is because of lack of rainfall and all that. That could be solved by damming the country.
Yeah.
So from talking to the Roche movement, I realised that the great scientist Professor Lance Enderby, has mapped the whole country.
Yeah.
He knows, and this is going on from the 1920s. We know exactly where to put the dams.
Yes.
There's no shortage of rainfall.
No.
In the north of Australia.
We've just got to know where to send it.
That's right.
I mean, it's happening naturally right now. The Coopers Creek near Birdsville is getting all this big rainfall from the top end, flowing naturally. Why don't we do it with our creative capacity of our mind to direct that for nature, where nature can't do it itself?
I mean, it's not rocket science.
No,
building
exactly.
a dam.
Yeah.
You know, they've known it, and they've got it, and the engineers, the geologists have been around the country. They've mapped it. So if you build it here, you know, it's a very simple dam to build. It dries out once the rains have gone. Then it's dried out, so you can build day and night.
Yeah.
You can really. You haven't got to build a dam underwater. That's hard work.
Yeah.
But you've got a dry bed. You can put you can build that with the modern machinery you've got all the mining machinery. You've got the really heavy machinery that can build dams extremely fast.
Yeah.
And they're not that expensive to build.
No.
So that could be done, and some of them could be built, 2 years.
Yeah.
You've got that. Once you've got that water, all that water, I mean, in the north of Australia, you've got 2 metres of rainfall.
Yeah.
That's an awful lot of water. Most of it just flows back out to the sea.
Exactly.
You just dam it off, and then you've got just supply of water all year round.
Exactly.
Now we can do irrigated farming. And the deep tropical farming that we've done in Malaysia, we don't have a rainfall problem. We have, we're the humid tropics. To understand the humid tropics, it's exactly like Darwin.
Yeah.
In the monsoon season, the rain comes down, it steams up, goes up, the rain comes up and it comes down. In Darwin it might do that 5 or 6 times a day. In Malaysia it generally does it every day, every second day. The rainfall comes down, steams up again, comes down. So we've got permanent water. So an official drought in Malaysia is no rain for 2 weeks. And in my 20 years, it's only happened about once.
Oh, wow.
I remember where a place like Langkawi browned out. That was during the El Nino, 1999, I think it was, 98, 99.
Yeah.
And where the whole world was affected. But even then, and so we had a few weeks without rain, and everybody's crying. So, we developed the deep tropical system in Malaysia where there's no water constraint. And so that enabled us to develop a new agricultural system. What we found is that in Malaysia for the last 500 years, 450 years under colonial rule, mainly the British, British colony, and even after it was got its independence in 1957. So the last 50 plus years. So we've had a 500-year period where Malaysia has never produced its food. Even though when you see Malaysia, it's green. We have the highest rate of photosynthesis in the world, 10 times higher than in temperate countries, because we're at the equator.
Yeah.
And we've got the carbon dioxide from all the rotting vegetation. We've got all the rainfall. It's a perfect greenhouse environment. And so we can grow everything, and yet we starve. And this is what happened during the Japanese occupation, is when MacArthur and the Navy blockaded Malaysia because they couldn't fight the Japanese. The Japanese were much better, so they just starved them into submission, cut off their supply. They had sea after Pearl Harbor, they got, and a few good battles, they got sea superiority. Yeah. And so nothing came into Malaysia, nothing went out, and the country starved, literally. My wife's parents' generation told me all the stories about the starvation of that, even though we got all the lush greenery growing and all the rest. And so a colleague of mine, really from all the time I've been in Malaysia, and he was an agricultural entrepreneur. He spent really the last 25 years trying to do a different form of farming. Now, all farming...
This is the grass farms you're talking
about?
Yeah.
Yes. So what all the colonial ones did, they tried to bring in European grazing into Malaysia. And for 500 years it just hasn't worked. There's been one failure after another failure after another failure. And even to this day, all the agricultural scientists, including my wife, who works for like the equivalent of CSIRO in Malaysia, all of them insisting that we have to do, animals got to be out grazing on grass. And then we had CSIRO come in the 1950s to set up new tropical grasses all the rest. And their intention was, well, we'll cut down the rainforest and we'll turn the whole of Malaysia into a grazing country, but a bit like New Zealand. And they were here for some years, and then they went away and couldn't do it. But they never told anybody. Scientists are very bad. They never write about their failures. So the next generation makes the same mistakes. They're never honest enough to make failures. But we were critical on this. And the entrepreneur, Yogan his name is, and he's a very smart entrepreneur, got a good training in animal science, and so he's setting up his own business. And so he did 2 major things. The first thing he did was said, I'd come to the conclusion, as soon as I got to Malaysia, is that we had to house the animals, we had to put them in sheds. They were suffering too much heat stress, they couldn't take the heat. It's not the heat so much as the high humidity. They can't, we had Australian sheep, They just brought in 3,000 merino sheep, merino Border Leicester cross sheep. Now, thick wool on them and all this. And here it was like putting them with a fur coat on it in the humid tropics. And so they couldn't survive the heat stress. But the real problem is that they had all the grasses that they were eating were no good. I analysed them and it had the nutritional quality of sawdust. So through the grass, they're just useless. These were the grasses that the Australians had brought in,
right?
You know, from tropical pastures.
Yeah.
You know, and all done that. These boys, and they're just useless. So I threw away grass. So grass is just useless in this country.
And what you've developed is these grass farms that you don't grow the grass for long enough or too long that it gets too old. Like it's like spring grass, you know, and so. But it grows very tall. It grows 6 feet high or something like that. And because it's spring grass, it gets fed to these cattle, and you can produce a lot of food.
You're partly right. The mistake that they've been making all the time, really, was that they were allowing the grass to grow too tall. And in the humid tropics, grass grows up very, very fast. So it goes through all plants, not just grass. Any tree starts off as a little seedling, you know, about that high, you know, going up. But within 35 days or so, grass or the little seedlings, they lignify. At that stage, when they're growing, they're highly delicious to all herbivore animals.
What's lignify mean?
What it means is that when a plant first grows up, when from the seed, it grows into a seedling, it's just growing more or less pure cellulose.
Oh, okay.
And the cellulose comes from sunlight, carbon dioxide, photosynthesis in green leaves.
Something that greenies
so you see the plant coming up, it's got 2 little leaves or a blade of grass coming up.
Yeah.
Now as soon as it's got there, it's green, it's collecting the solar radiation, and it's using that as an energy source to make the chemical bonds, you know, from raw materials.
Yeah.
There's a few minerals in the ground.
Yeah.
So it's making pure cellulose. Now, that's delicious to all herbivore animals, you know, sheep, cattle, insects, you know, that's the whole start of the food chain of the biosphere going on. But but if you put yourself in the position of a plant, if you're a plant there, how do you stop getting eaten? And if you're getting eaten, you don't survive, you know, you don't go. So the trick is they lignify. They protect the cellulose with lignin and hemicellulose, and that turns the cellulose into really a form like reinforced concrete that's indigestible to insects and animals. The older it gets, the more lignified it becomes. So this was the big problem, is that we're feeding old grass to animals, and they can eat it, and they can survive, but they can't put on weight. Now, the whole purpose of animal production is to put on weight as fast as you can and get the animal to market.
So they can actually develop the ruminants, which turns into the protein that's going to feed us.
So so Jochen came up with he was against all of the scientists that you had to go for grazing, and he said no, he's more or less they saying we can't feed, we have to find other things for animals to feed, and we're using byproducts for the palm oil industry. So we've got the biggest palm oil industry in the world, in Malaysia, so we're using a very good byproduct of that called palm kernel cake, PKC. And my wife and myself, she was an agricultural scientist, we worked out that was enough to make Malaysia self-sufficient in lamb and beef if it was used. Now, Jochen agreed with that, you know, he said it's right, but he said, you scientists are crazy. He said, all that byproduct is being sold to Europe, you know, to the Dutch dairy farmers, because it's very good, and you're not going to get your hands on it. And we saw it, the price just went up and up and up, and whoever went on to using that PKC for feedlotting animals just went broke, because they couldn't afford it. So he says, what you should be feeding animals on is grass. And we said, you can't grow grass. I've shown you all the results I get. You know, it's quality of sawdust. And he says, well, that's your grass. My grass, animals don't starve. And what he had done, he used to spend a lot of time, every year he would go on a trip, you know, to Africa, you know, to Vietnam, a different country every year. And he picked up from Thailand that the farmers there had been using a special African grass. And they're farming in Thailand, smallholder farming, family farming, sort of, not large scale. And he picked up from a few Kluwi farmers there a particular grass. He brought the seeds back to Malaysia, started growing it, and he found it was fantastic. Now, there's nothing special about the grass that he picked except that it was resistant to fungus. Now, most of the tropical grasses that the Australians had brought in, guinea grass and things like that, were either, they only lasted 1 year, so you had to plough back, or they got fungus, or they got pests. But this grass seemed to be completely resistant to all that. So he picked it, and it was very easy farming. And we've been growing it now, and so he took it to a big stage. So Malaysia is a plantation country. It's got the biggest, you know, started with the biggest rubber industry in the world, but, and then palm oil.
How can we implement this in Australia? Because I mean, this is the thing. If we need to mass produce this, and I mean, I think if you look at the Tropic of Capricorn, you know, if we can develop agriculture down to there, we can mass produce this, and Australia can be a role in feeding the world.
Yeah. There's one other development we made that makes it possible. It's not just, so we've got the grass. We can grow it on plantation scale. This is how Malaysia thinks. It thinks plantation. That's its business. It's the best in the world at it. So he's saying, right, instead of what the Thai farmers were just building in small lots and all that, hand feeding a few animals, Yogan thought big. He says, right, we put a grass plantation. So he set up, he started off small with sheep and goats and doing it. And then he had a big breakthrough, and he had an investor who was prepared to put in the money for a dairy. So he said, right, we'll do 1,000 cow dairy, and we'll build a grass plantation around it. Now, the key thing that he did is that the best animals in the world for production are temperate animals. So for this dairy, he wanted Jersey cattle, Jersey cows. All right, you bring Jersey cows to Malaysia, and they can't survive. They can't take the heat stress. They like it cool, and they can't take the diseases that we've got. We've got every disease known to man in the humid tropics because it's a greenhouse. No summer, no winter, and always wet. Perfect climate for microorganisms, for viruses, everything. So we had to. The development that he made is that he built very economic shelters for animals. So with this dairy. It was just like the sort of barns that you have in Australia, in America, metal barn. So he put evaporative cooling into these barns. So this is far about 1/10 of the cost of aircon. So, and what you do is you have a curtain of water, you suck out the air with big exhaust fans, and outside temperature 34 degrees. Goes through a water curtain, cools down the air inside 27 degrees. And then and also you've got quite a high ventilation rate. Again, all the scientists are saying it's impossible. You can't do evaporative cooling in the humid tropics because it's too humid. And he said, all right, yeah, I know you can't do it, but I've done it.
Well, a lot of them are the bureaucrats, and it's like a lot of things with agriculture today that, and just with what we're talking about, that people say, oh no, you can't do it. But this is the thing. I mean, last night we had a meeting in Brisbane. Mohd Peter Davis spoke to that meeting and addressed a gathering of CEC supporters. And you made the point that all this can be done. The only thing that's stopping us is the politics. And I mean, you know, and you're discovering more about Australia's Republican history. I mean, you've experienced it yourself directly in one case. But this is the thing. Australia can do this if we establish a republic, if we have that can-do-it mentality, that pioneering spirit that we've had, and this is really what we need to talk about.
This is what I was impressed about, you know, in meeting really the older farming community, you know, the ones really about my age, 60 plus, and the ones that have done practical farming. As soon as I start talking, you know, about that, they click on. They say, yes, it's criminal. We know how to do it, but politics stops us having the dams. But what they really picked up on was the fact that we've got to get away from grazing. We have to housing, and that's, I think, was the key thing that put it all together. We put cows, we put sheep into housing. If necessary, we do this evaporative cooling. We need it for cows, better for cattle. So even in a harsh, high temperature climate, it could be 40 degrees. We can get the temperature down to 27. you know, in these climates. So we have the animals. So we have the animals. We do intensive farming. So we'll have 100 cows in one barn.
Yeah.
Right? And they're really happy. You know, they're really, because we give them sort of Hilton hotel conditions. That's what we call them.
Yeah.
And our sheep.
Well, you're actually treating them like human, which would be a paradox to the greenies.
Oh yeah. Well, this is the point. Our animals in our climate-controlled buildings, they're living far better than half of humanity.
Right.
And then we've got people saying animal rights and all that.
Oh,
you know, it's just crazy. And they say, "Oh, you're locking up the animals all the time." We're not. With the cows, we bring them out twice a day. And they go on a big milking turn, and they love it.
Yeah.
Because if you're a cow, you're feeding perfect nutrition. You've got to be milked.
Yeah.
And so so we don't have to touch them. They line up, happy, and all the rest. And they come and go, and then they go back again, eat the food. So it's perfect for a cow. Now, cows are timid animals.
Yeah.
You know, they're not aggressive tigers or anything like that.
Yeah.
So in the barns, we have music playing, 24 hours. And they don't seem to care what music it is, but the purpose of the music is to deaden the sounds of nature. Animals screaming, birds crying, and all the rest. That's its purpose. It's so you don't startle them.
Right.
Because animals they're startled by the noises of nature. Yeah. So we drown that out with soft music. And so they're extremely happy there. And all the you think of 100 cows in one barn. All the feces going down. So we have an automatic scraper system. Every 2 hours, the scraper comes, scrapes the slurry, off it goes in. We don't have to wash with water or anything like this. And then the cows get used to it. Within 2 weeks, they become acclimatised to these barns. So they step over the scraper. It's a free barn. They're not caged in pens. They're free to roam. It's called a free barn. They move around and all this. And then they poke their head through a railing. And one side has got a road going through the barn. Trailer comes in, cut the grass, chop it, mix it with some protein concentrates. Within 1 hour of being cut, this fresh grass with concentrates, put on the floor. One tractor driver putting it on the floor. Animals poke their head through there and all eat. They can all eat at the same time. No fighting, no competition for food. And then the tractor rolls out. So it's almost automatic farming. Yeah. And Yogan's idea is that he says, my idea, I want a completely automatic farm. And that's the way to do it. Because there's cut out all the monkey labour.
Well, it's like a technological revolution in agriculture. You're increasing the productive powers of your labour force. And so you can really smash this Malthusian argument. Yeah. You know, that Malthus, of course, Thomas Malthus, this revered economist of the British East India Company, said, human population grows geometrically, but food production only grows arithmetically. And what you're doing totally smashes that. Yeah. For good.
This one, Malthus was just a liar. Yeah. He was an English priest, insult to Christianity he was. Yeah. He just wanted to depopulate the world. Yeah. So he came up with this, it wasn't a theory at all, it was just a lie. That the food production grows arithmetically, but the human population grows geometrically. Yeah. So, but this is actually a lie. Yeah. That they've always known that we can. The whole history of mankind in the last 10,000 years, since the Egyptians invented permanent agriculture, they'd done nomadic agriculture before that when they were travelling the oceans. People of the sea during the Ice Age, but when the global warming period came about 10,000 years ago, the Earth naturally warmed up again. This natural cycle going from 100,000 year Ice Age to 10,000 year global warming period. The Egyptians then, that knew people of the sea that used to travel around the oceans dodging the ice, and they knew how they put those ideas to practice, established settled agriculture in Egypt. And so we've known for 10,000 years that huge increase in population. Then there were 10 million people. We estimate 10 million people on Earth during the last Ice Age. When the Egyptians set up agriculture, then there was the human population was going up, not arithmetically at all, not geometrically. It was going up logarithmically. Right. And so, and yet, the food production always kept. So we've gone from 10 million, and we have nearly 7 billion today.
Yeah.
So the population has gone up logarithmically. Also, food production has gone up.
And it's not that we can't produce the food. There's the free trade policies that prevent us from doing that, and the denial of technology like this.
Yes. Every serious scientist, even the 1970s, they were saying that. So we've got no problem. Whatever population you want, we can produce the food, provided you do it scientifically. Yeah. So every scientist has known that. Right back, the Malthus was just a plain liar, and he had a different agenda. Yeah. He had a agenda of the British Empire, really, depopulate. Yeah. Because if we allow people to develop, why do they need an empire? Why do they need us?
Well, Malthus was a reaction to Benjamin Franklin, because you had the United States, developing as a sovereign nation, and that really represented a threat to the British Empire. And I think, just keeping on this theme of what you were saying about the greenies, this is really out-greening the greenies. This is really what man's proper role in the environment is.
Yeah. I think this is the expression to use, where what science does is out-green the greenies. Yeah. Everything they crow about, we must do this, we can do, and more. And yet we can increase the population. Yeah. And so, if you have a look at the population growth of the planet, if we were allowed to do what scientists really want to do, just to feed people and develop and put up nuclear power stations and maglev hours, we do all this. We've got no problem in getting to a population of 11 billion by the end of the century. Yeah. And the Greens say, no, you can't do this, you'll exhaust the earth. Yeah. And this is crazy. Yeah. What we're saying is, with modern technology, we can do more than what nature can do. We are now the highest product of nature.
Well, this is actually what Vernadsky talks about. Yes. Vladimir Vernadsky, that Lyndon LaRouche cites a lot in his writings. That it's part of LaRouche's method of science in economics, that that's man's role, to be the creative factor on nature, that nature can't do itself.
I'm glad you mentioned Vernadsky. He's my great hero, great scientist, greatest scientist of the 20th century. And every student, science should start with Vernadsky.
Yeah, every university,
and then go back to the ancient Greeks and the Egyptian, all of the discoveries, recreate. School children should recreate all the experiments.
They should be reading the writings of Vernadsky.
That's right. And it's not easy. It's not easy reading, because we've been miseducated. Exactly. But once you go into it and you start bringing up kids with this, they'll take to it like a duck to water.
Well, kids naturally think like this, think like that. Yes. It's the brainwashing in school.
They'll have it bashed out of them at school.
Exactly.
I see the vast difference between kindergarten kids and school kids. Yeah. Kindergarten kids are normal, healthy, playful kids, and the kindergarten teachers do a great thing. Most of them, my kids could read and write before they went to school, and this thing. So naturally, they just pick up languages and all the rest. Yeah. They're playful, and this is the nature of humans. Is that we explore by playing. Yeah. That's the children, and scientists really are just. Good scientists just overgrown kids. Yeah, right. That's all they are. They've still got that playful attitude. Yeah. To life. But as soon as they go to school, they start shutting up, and they control. Yeah. You're here to obey.
They're channeled.
And you're not here to think, not here to challenge any ideas. Now this is against all science. And you want the crazy men. You want to, hey, this is crazy. What you're saying is crazy. Yeah. And absurd.
The natural human impulse.
Yeah, sure. To say this is crazy. How you get the. So if you bring up children with that, Vernadsky is going to be the key science of every science. As soon as you get children growing up understanding what Vernadsky was about, then it all comes. Particularly for the biological world. And this will transform everything. And we realise that the greenies are just lunatics, basically. They have no science at all. It defies all science. It's just emotion, it's just fear. Yeah. And the whole of human history disproves them. We've gone from 10 million to 7 billion, a 1,000-fold increase in human population. Before we had a lot of science. Now, with the science that we've developed since the scientific renaissance, and that's carried on to America. The scientific level we have now, inside 1-2 generations, we can feed the world. And we can feed now double the population.
Mm-hmm.
So we can. It's an easy task. It's an easy task to have this fourfold increase in food production by the end of this century.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no reason. And what I like is when we talk to the Australian farmers, the old guys that have done it and just been crushed because of really the politics and free trade and all that, they immediately say yes. The thing they like now is we get away from grazing. We put the animals out. We have a harsh climate. There's no climate harsher than Australia.
Well, because these farmers
put them into summer Mediterranean sheds.
Yeah.
Climate of summer Mediterranean, beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, and they talk about animal rights. Do you think an animal? Don't you think the harshest thing you can do to an animal is put them into the outback?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
To me, it's cruelty.
Exactly.
Put them into our Hilton Head sheds.
Air-conditioned
and all right, we do a deal with them. We say we treat you. You're not going to live very long, but you have a good life, short life, but a good one.
Yeah, right.
But if you're a breeder, you've got a very long life.
Well, this is the thing about the farmers: is that the farmers are creative, that they naturally think scientifically, that they're not brainwashed by free trade or money.
Sure.
And they have this optimistic go-get-them attitude, and this is what built the country.
So, I think just getting back on this is what Jogan, he epitomises really that optimism of farmer.
Yeah.
He says, I know how to do it. I don't listen to the scientists.
Yeah.
I listen to them when they're right, but they're not right very often. And so the Australian scientists, I talk to the Australian farmers. They say, I didn't go to university, I didn't go to school, and I just picked it up. And I know when you're in the outback, you can't get on the phone and get somebody to fix it. This was a complaint in the outback. There's one man doing 10 jobs, and that was it. That's where the creativity comes.
Yeah.
It's that you've got a problem, you can't phone up, you've got to find a solution.
Yeah.
And the bush solution is a bit rough, but if you give me more money, I'll do it properly.
Yeah.
And so we've got all of that. So we get back to that pioneer development. Australia is, in my opinion, the Australian pioneer spirit was much, much stronger than the American Wild West. Because it wasn't Wild West, it wasn't the tropics.
Right.
Plenty of water, it was just they were developing. It was a temperate climate, quite nice. So the Australians' pioneer spirit of the 1850s to the 1890s, that's what we've got to get back to.
Yeah.
With all the modern technology that we know from the mining industry, from the agricultural industry. We can get back to that, and the old guys are the important ones.
Yeah.
They can't do the work, but they can inspire the young ones. They say, this is how we did it here. So if you can unite that older generation now, in their 60s, they're called here now, I know, the grey nomads.
Oh, yeah.
They bought a house. My brother's an example. 69, bought a house, $8,000, 8,000 Australian dollars,
cheap.
and so the house, the house prices went up.
Yeah.
Not geometrically, logarithmically. So they sold them off.
Yeah.
And bought a caravan or motorhome. 5 years going around Australia, fantastic. And these are the ones. These are the most optimistic because they see a vast country, and a lot of them got rural backgrounds.
Yeah.
Because all the important people weren't in cities; they were out in the country towns.
Yeah.
And the outback. So if we can get the country back to that, but get the youth out of the cities, recreating really at a much higher technological level.
Yep.
That pioneer spirit of the 1850s to the 1890s, when you went from almost no sheep up to 100 million sheep, and you produced in that period more wool than wool was ever produced before.
Right. Yeah.
England, remember, was built on wool. That was its industry.
Yeah.
Huh?
Well, if we get these young people, I mean, there's so many young people that are, unemployed right now, and I think this is the future for this country to get them doing that. I think that's all we've got time for today, Peter. Thanks for your time. People can get copies of Peter's articles by calling the number on your screen, sending an email to us, going on the website. The details are there, and look more into this stuff, and let's go out there and get this thing happening. That's all we've got time for. Peter, thank you.
Just one last word.
Oh, yeah?
I say to the youth, the American expression was go west, young man, go west. So to Australians, I would say, to the young ones, go north, young man, go north. Get to the north. That's where the development's going to be in Australia. Get back to what you're best at, big scale agriculture.
That's great. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, great. Let's do that.
Yeah.